Hey Floss Tube, welcome back. This is my 88th Floss Tube video, and I am excited to share with you what I have been working on. First of all, I want to welcome you. If you are new to my channel, welcome. I hope that you enjoy the things that I have to share with you. And if you are returning, thank you for coming back and watching my videos. It's been 3 weeks since my last video. Work has kind of gotten in the way again, but things are going well now. The pressure is finally slacking off a little bit, I think, which is always good, and things are going well. This last week I actually started going back into work. They are bringing people back into the offices on a kind of a slow basis. They asked for volunteers and I volunteered. So I have been going back into work. It's kind of a strange feeling because there is almost nobody in the building that I see, and so I'm basically working by myself. I'm just working in the office now. One of my colleagues is planning on coming into the office this next week, so things might change a little bit. But yeah, so it's been kind of interesting. We have all of my kids are home. My daughter comes home on the weekends. She lives down in Tucson and is working in a lab down there, and her lab opened a couple of weeks ago, and since then she has been spending the weeks down here and then coming up to spend the weekends with us. So everything's going pretty well. Yeah. So before we really get started and talk about what I've been working on, I just want to respond to some comments that were left on my videos since the last time I posted. First of all, Mata Kepmon asked me what fabric I am using to stitch my time and season sampler. That's a piece that I believed I showed in my last video, and I am using 40 count mallow. It's a fabric from Zweigart. It's a linen cotton blend, I believe, and it's really quite nice. I really like it. Stitch Addict asked me, have I been lucky enough to see some of the samplers that are hanging in the attic? And yes, I have. In fact, I always, whenever I go into the shop, I always enjoy looking at what she has hanging on the walls. And there are actually not just samplers, there are some other pieces that are hanging on the walls that I always love to see because they're pieces that I would like to stitch sometime. She has they're not in quite so prominent a position, but she has Sunshine and Shadows, which is a design by Graphs by Barbara and Cheryl that I have always wanted to stitch, and that it's on my list, and I actually have the stuff to actually stitch that. I think she has Lady of the Flag, the Mirabilia chart that is really popular. That is hanging up there, and that is something else that I would love to stitch at one time. And there are also a couple of other pieces in addition to all of her samplers and reproduction samplers. It's always a treat to go into the store and see some of the things that she has hanging up. She has had Harriet Salt from Hands Across the Sea. I don't know if it's still there, but it was right next to where you check out. And every time I see Harriet, I want to stitch her. She has a couple of other Hands Across the Sea samplers that really speak to me as well. And every time I see them, that makes me want to stitch them right away. So there's some really neat stuff to see there. Gayla asked me if I used Calico Kitty on Let Freedom Ring, and of course Let Freedom Ring is up here. The color of the Independence Hall, this red color, is Calico Kitty by Classic Colorworks. And it is actually a red and a brown blend. It kind of varies between those two colors. When I first saw it, it looked like there was a lot of brown in it, and I was a little bit worried because I wanted it to look red. But stitching with it, I think it really turned out nice. There are kind of splotches of red and brown scattered throughout the building, and I think it looks really nice. So yes, I didn't make any substitutions for any of the colors. Those are stitched with all of the called for colors in the design. So Donna asked me about my time and season sampler, and she asked me, I guess when I showed it the last time, to say that I had finished it. I said something along the lines of, when I started working on this, I ended up not liking it, and towards the end I really fell in love with it. And she asked me, what is it that you didn't like about it when you first started? So I've got it out so that I can show you, so that I can talk a little bit about that. So of course this is the Four Seasons, a primitive Quaker year. This is my most recent finish. And I have it upside down, so I'm going to turn it right side up. So this is Four Seasons, a primitive Quaker year. This is a design by Modern Folk Embroidery. It was he did a 2018 mystery stitch along, and I bought all the parts for it and stitched it. It just took me a couple of years to stitch. You can still buy this on his website, and I would highly recommend it if you want to stitch this, because I really like it. I really like the borders and everything. So as I said, when I first started stitching this, I wasn't really enjoying stitching it. And the reason why is, I think the biggest reason why, was in this winter block. If you see, there's a bunch of single cross stitches all the way through here. And I didn't want to carry my thread between the different those stitches. So I just did single stitches. This was the first time I was stitching with floss, and I found out that the first time I was stitching with silk floss, and I found out that silk is really slippery, and so the way I used to anchor stitches, sometimes they were coming loose because there wasn't enough friction to hold the stitches in place. And so it was really becoming a pain, because I would stitch something and it would come undone and then I'd have to stitch it again. I finally figured out how to anchor my floss so it doesn't come undone when I'm working with silk. And just so you know, what I do is I start with a diagonal pin stitch, but I do it twice, so that I go through the center fabric hole 4 times before I start doing the rest of the stitches. And that gives enough volume of floss in the fabric hole that there's enough friction to really secure the stitch, and I found that works really well. So that was part of the problem, is I was having stuff come undone because the silk is really slick, and I had to figure out how to really anchor my silk. And then the other thing is all of these little stitches. I find little teeny tiny motifs that are spread all the way through here. They're a lot of work, and I don't like them as much as I like the larger motifs. So if you look, there's small motifs in here, there's a few small motifs in here, and then you get down here, and the motifs are larger in there. And I like stitching the larger motifs as opposed to the 1 or even 4 stitch motifs that are up here. So yeah, I think that was the basic thing, is I wasn't really enjoying it because of all of the small motifs. And then down here there's not as much, so things went faster. Yeah, and of course there was a time when I thought, I don't know that I like this enough to continue working on it, but I am glad that I stuck through to the end. That happens to me a lot, actually, is I get midway through a project and I get kind of tired of it and question whether or not I want to continue stitching on it, but I usually stick to it and keep working on it, and I don't ever regret finishing a project, but there's always a time when a project isn't my favorite, I guess is the way to put it. Okay. Okay. Sylvia asked me about my tracking spreadsheets. She asked, do you need to start a new sheet for every month, or can you just keep adding lines? And no, you don't add a sheet for every month. You just keep adding lines to the stitching log. I checked this morning to see, and I have over 1,600 lines in my stitching log. So, and that's like 3 or 4 years worth, I think, right now, and it's still going strong. I haven't been really watching the graphs and the results lately, so that's why I haven't been sharing graphs with you, is because I haven't really been looking at it too much, but I am still entering my data in. So maybe one of these days I will find a graph that I would like to share with you again. Okay, Heather asked me if I could explain how to do tent stitch on full coverage. And Heather, I'm not sure. I've never stitched tent stitch, so I don't really think that I can comment on that. I mean, I've watched a couple of videos of people talking about how to do that, and I would really recommend that you look at Carolyn Mazzio's video. She did a whole tutorial about how to use continental stitch, which is similar to tent stitch, and how to park full coverage using continental stitch. And you can check out her video. I will post a link to her video down below, and it is really informative. It's been many years since Carolyn posted a video, but her videos were always really great. I enjoyed her videos, and she posted a lot of information that kind of taught me some of the ins and outs of parking and other stitching techniques. So even though her videos are not so recent, they are still great resources that you can use to learn how to stitch. So I would highly recommend that you check her out. Okay, so that is those are all of the questions that I had. Thank you for all of your comments, and thank you for your questions. Feel free to ask me anything you want, and I will respond to them as in my next video. So I have something else I want to share with you. I have a design that I really want to stitch, and I don't know when I'm going to start it, but I got this recently, and I want to share it with you. This is Teresa Baird released this. Her company is Heartsease Exemplar Works. And this is Virginia, a Cumberland County inspiration. When I saw this, I just had to have it. I just love the border and all of the colors that are in this. And I'm excited to be able to work on this sometime. I'm gonna take this out of the cellophane so that there's not quite so much of a glare on it. So this is it. I really love this. This border is really complicated, but very, very colorful. I love the house in the middle, and this scene here, and this border. I love everything about this sampler. It really speaks to me. And It looks like it is fairly challenging. There are specialty stitches in here all over the place. There are a lot of flowers that have spiral trellis centers, and then there's a lot of, she calls it closed herringbone, but I found out that closed herringbone is the same as double backstitch. So there's a lot of double backstitch. These trees here are stitched in reverse chain stitch. So there's some really cool specialty stitches in here, and I plan on doing that. She has, she says if you don't want to do the specialty stitches, you can just do cross stitch, and some of it is actually charted as cross stitch with suggestions of what to do for specialty stitches instead. I'm really warming up to the idea of specialty stitches, so that really attracts me. And like I say, I think this is just beautiful, and look forward to actually stitching it so that I can see what it looks like in real life. So this is from Heartsease Exemplar Works, and it's Virginia, a Cumberland County inspiration. And I've seen a lot. Well, she is doing a sampler for each of the 13 colonies. This is her Virginia one. She has three or four others that are state-based, I guess. And this is my favorite of them so far. There are a couple of others that I really like, but this one is just wonderful. So I don't have fabric or floss for this, so I need to get that, but I really want to stitch this soon. Okay, so now let's get into the meat of things. Let's talk about what I have been working on. So the last time that I left you, I said that I was going to work on this. This is English Garden Sampler by Teresa Wentzler. And if you've been following me, I was working on this sampler when I made my first video. So this has been a long work in progress, and I am getting really close to being able to finish it. So this is the first thing I worked on 2 weeks ago. I'll insert a picture of what it looked like the last time that you saw it. I am stitching this on 25 count Antique White Lugana. I am stitching it with Sullivans Floss, which that was an experiment to see what I thought about Sullivans. I will probably not use Sullivans again, just for various reasons that I've talked about in previous videos that I don't want to rehash here. But I am really happy with how this has turned out, and of course most of this has already been stitched. So the last time you saw it, I just barely started work on this peacock's tail down here. So I was able to stitch the peacock's, all of this of the peacock's tail, and I've also gotten over here into this this border that goes along the bottom of the fence. So there's another fence. I'm just barely getting to seeing the fence. You can see there's a flower urn up here to match this one, and it's about half stitched. So I was really happy with what I was able to accomplish, because I was able to stitch so much. The bottom corner of this is just right here. So the next diagonal, I'll have finished the entire bottom, and then I'll just have to work up. I'll probably end up working clear up to here. This is where the peacock's head is. The peacock's neck comes clear up here and comes to here. So I kind of think that I will finish this hedge here before I reach the peacock's head. So, and I was really enjoying this. I think in a couple of previous videos I said that I was kind of avoiding this because it's so much work. And then I started working on it, and it was just a blast to stitch, and I was like, why was I avoiding this? And in fact, I got down here at the end of the week, and I thought, I'm just going to keep going. But I was kind of low on a couple of colors of floss, and I was worried that I would run out of floss. Since it's Sullivans, I can't just go down to Hobby Lobby and buy Sullivans Floss. So I had to order floss and wait for it to show up. So if I had had enough floss, I think I would have just kept going. I am getting to the point where I am close to finishing, and when I get to that point, it's just like a mad rush. So I think I am getting to the point where I'm going to be working to get this finished over. That'll be my priority over everything else. So I'll give you a little bit closer look of the peacock's tail. And of course, you see there's a lot of holes in here. That's because there are a lot of blends with blending filament that I'm waiting to fill in, just because I find it hard to park with blending filament. So when I finish the peacock's tail, I'm going to come back in here and stitch all the blending filament. There are also beads in the peacock's tail that I'm not going to place until the very end. That will be the last thing. So there's still kind of a lot of work, but that will go pretty fast because it'll be colors and blending filament and just going. There won't be any parking. It'll just be filling in holes. So yeah, the top of the fence is right here. You can see the flower urn, and yeah. So it feels like I am so close. I don't know if I can finish all of the cross stitching in a week, but I'm pretty sure that I can finish it in 2. I am sure, and so I am just getting so close to finishing this, and I'm looking forward to actually finishing it. This finish has been a long time coming, and I really want to get it finished because I have another sampler. I want to stitch her English cottage sampler as well, and when I finish this, I am going to start the English cottage sampler to take its place. There are a couple of other Teresa Wentzler designs that I would love to stitch, but I think I can only handle one at a time. I don't think I could have more than one going at a time. But I really want to stitch English cottage sampler as well. So there it is, English garden sampler by Teresa Wentzler. And like I say, I am so close and looking so forward to seeing what that will look like when it is finished. So since I couldn't continue on with that piece, I decided to pull out something else. I'm kind of in a I'm going to stitch what I want phase rather than I'm going to work through my rotation. And maybe what I stitch what I want will eventually build into a rotation. So I decided to pull out this. This is a Saviour's Prayse. It's a design by Teresa Wentzler of Shakespeare's Peddler. It's her own design. It's not a reproduction sampler. It just looks like an old sampler. It's meant to look like an old sampler. And of course, this is a design that was pretty popular. It was released last year at market. And when I saw it, this is another piece that I just had to stitch. So I did. So I'll show you a picture of what this looked like the last time you saw it. I am stitching this on 40 count Beach Brew by R&R Fabrics, and by R&R Reproductions. And I am stitching with the anchor floss that was called for. My first time stitching with anchor, which I don't really mind anchor. I really like it. When I told my mom that I was stitching with anchor, it was kind of funny. She said, don't you think the anchor is really, really tangly? And I really haven't had that problem. But she hasn't stitched for years, and I found it really interesting that she would say that about anchor floss. Anyway, this is what it looks like now. And once again, I am really, really happy with my progress. So I finished the house. I finished this border, and I stitched the numbers that come across here. And I also started working, I filled in this part of the border down here as well. And like I say, I'm really happy with what I was able to accomplish. I think this is, stitch-wise, this is the most dense area of the piece. So I finished the most dense area of the piece. And I think I've spent like 3 weeks stitching these trees in this house. I think that the rest of the sampler will go relatively more quickly when I get to it. But yeah, like I say, I was really happy with what I was able to accomplish. I'll give you a little bit closer look. This flower, the color of the flower is kind of close to the color of the fabric, so you can't, the camera is not really picking it up very well. This border, I have really enjoyed this border, and I think it looks really good now that it's all finished. And then there's the house, which I finished stitching. So now I just need to finish this border up here, and then we can start working on, there's like a basket here, and then there's the words to "Now Think We All Are God" here. So that'll be exciting to get through as well. I'll let you look at the bottom too really close. My wife says this deer is her favorite because he's facing the wrong way. So yeah, so that is Saviour's Prayse by Shakespeare's Peddler. And I'm really happy with how this is turning out. I think I have about 4 more weeks left on this one. So this one is, I'm just barely underneath the 50% mark. So this is another one that is kind of a priority for me because I'm starting to feel like it's getting close to being finished. Okay, that leaves 1 more week to talk about what I worked on, and I decided to pull out this. This is the Queen Sampler by Darlene Osteen of the Needles Prayse. This is my challenge piece, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. This is really, really stretching me in a good way, and I'm really enjoying it. I am also stitching with I'm also using the stitch guide that was published last year by Linda Vincent of Needlemade Designs. And of course, this is the instructions for this tell you how to stitch it reversibly. And I decided I was going to do that. And that has kind of been, I wouldn't say it's hard, but you have to think, and you can't really work very quickly because of that. So I'll show you a picture of what this looked like the last time that you saw it. I'm stitching this on 37 count Russian tea cakes. I think it's a linen from Access Commodities. And I'm stitching using AVAS silk. There's a couple of NPI colors in here as well. They are the colors that were suggested by Linda Vincent because the colors have shifted, and these are colors that are closer to the original colors of the design because things have shifted a little bit. So this is what it looks like now, and you'll say, well, yeah, that doesn't look like you've accomplished quite a bit. it doesn't look like you've done a lot. And that's true. It doesn't look like I've done all that much. So I've stitched everything below this below this blue line. So the big thing that I stitched was this vine here. The vine is 2 rows of Montenegrin stitch, and then on the inside are 2 rows of double back stitch, and diagonal double back stitch and diagonal Montenegrin stitch. And it's not really that hard to stitch. Once you get the hang of it, it's pretty easy. But what I found the challenge is like down here, where I was stitching without a lot of landmark to tell me where to make the bend to come back up. I miscounted that and had to stitch this a couple of times in order to get it right. But the diagrams, I'm also using The Proper Stitch, which was a book that Darlene Osteen published. And in that book, she documents how to do all sorts of stitches. And I found that that book explains a lot more about Montenegrin stitch than the diagrams in the actual chart do. And so I found that to be really helpful, is to use that book. So, but yeah, I really love the effect, the way this looks. I mean, it's not standard cross stitch. It looks really, really nice. And then of course, all of this is reversible cross stitch in here too, which isn't hard to do. I've gotten used to being able to do it. It's become easier for me to do. But once again, you have to think where you're going, and you have to think about what you're doing on the back of the fabric as you're stitching on the front. So it's a little bit slower. The other thing that you have to worry about is I can't remember what you have to worry about, but anyway, it's you just have to think and be careful and not make sure that you are doing things right. So it's not just do a bunch of X's. Oh, that's what I was going to say. With regular cross stitch, an X is two passes of the needle. With the reversible cross stitch, it's going to be 3 passes of the needle, or sometimes even 4, depending on how you're traveling. So that just slows you down a little bit. And it's the same with double back stitch and well, especially Montenegrin stitch, because every section is about 3 passes of the needle to make a part of the stitch. So anyway, I'll give you a little bit closer look so that you can see it. Hopefully my colors don't wash out too much. But yeah, I really like the look of this vine. This down here is double back stitch variation, which is like double back stitch, except for there's a vertical bar between each stitch. So just for the sake of completeness, I'll show you what the back looks like. So if you see this, you can see that everything looks really nice. This looks like 2 rows of stitching with double back stitch, parallel back stitch rows in between them. That's what the double back stitch is you're really just doing 2 rows of back stitch together, and on the front it looks kind of like cross stitch, and on the back it looks like parallel back stitch. And same with this double back stitch variation. I can't get it close enough for you to be able to see, but there's a vertical bar between each stitch. So yeah, I'll give you a look at the front once more. Really, it's been really fun and kind of a challenge. It just is not a fast stitch, and I don't want it to be. I want to take my time and make this look really nice. I'm not in a race to finish this. So anyway, these are our grapes. You can see I started with this bunch of grapes in here. Wasn't able to finish it. These are all filled in with spiral trellis. So I'm going to have to find some time to practice that a little bit to make sure that I can do it. That is one of the stitches that I am most concerned about being able to do. But there it is, the Queen Sampler by Darlene Osteen. So that's the last project that I have that I have to show you that I have worked on since my last video. So what am I going to work on? Well, I am going to pull out. I'm going to work on this again. I'm going to work on English Garden Sampler. I'm going to see how close I get to finishing all the cross stitch down here, and I may be working on this for more than 1 week. If I can finish the cross stitch, then I am really considering just because once the cross stitch is finished, there's a whole bunch of specialty stitches that have to be filled in all the way around. There's beads that have to be placed. There's cut work through here. So there's still a lot to do. But I think once I finish the cross stitch, I'm thinking that I'm just going to work on this until it's finished. That may change. It depends on but that's kind of what I'm thinking right now, because this is a piece that I really want to be finished. It's been 4 years in the making, and it's time to get it finished so I can do something else. So that's what I'm working on this next week. If you want to follow me and see how I do on a day-to-day basis, you can always follow me on Instagram. I am at blitstitch on Instagram, and you can follow me and see what I do on a daily basis there. That's all that I have to share with you. Thanks for spending time with me. I hope, as always, if you have not subscribed to my channel, feel free to subscribe to my channel. That way you can get updates when I post videos. And I am always looking forward to hearing from you, and would be glad to answer any questions that you have. Just post them in the comments. I hope that you have a great week, and we will talk to you later. Goodbye.